Good morning, Unity on the River. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Our joy is changing the world today. So let's, if you care to stand and clap and sing, it's time to dance and play. My joy is changing the world.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Ogun Holder, Senior Minister here. I'm going to invite you to stand. And we begin with an affirmation. Indeed, we are the ones we have been waiting for because we are all that God is. That is what the I am means. The I am means that we are all that God is. So I want you to affirm with me, I am all that God is. Say it. I am all that God is. Say it again. I am all that God is. Repeat after me. I am light. I am love. I am life. I am joy. I am all that God is. I am. I am. Let's spend some time in the land of I am. Take it away. And right now, since we're in the land of unity on the river, take a moment to greet each other with a namaste. The divine in me beholds the divine in you. Give a handshake, give a hug, see the divine light in each other. Namaste.
Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day.
Sherry Godet, thank you. The beautiful Karen Druckett song. Now we come into our hearts, the light of Holy Spirit. There is a light, a holy light. There is a light, a holy light. There is a light, a holy light. There is a light shining as you, shining out to make you holy, shining as you, shining out to make you whole. There is a love, a holy love. There is a love. There is a love, a holy love. There is a love that is shining as you, shining out to make you holy, shining as you, shining out to make you whole. Yeah, and there is a peace, a holy peace. There is a peace. There is a peace, a holy peace. There is a peace that is shining as you, shining out to make you holy, shining as you, shining out to make you whole. The Holy Spirit is all around you. The Holy Spirit, oh, the Holy Spirit is all around you. Holy Spirit, and it's shining as you, shining out to make you holy, shining as you, shining out to make you whole.
Let's stay in that energy of wholeness as we prepare for a time of meditation. I invite you, if you're comfortable, to take a deep breath and close the eyes. Plant both feet on the floor. And just breathe into the depths of yourself for a moment. With each out breath, allow the body to relax into the chair a little bit more. Notice in the thoughts, the distractions of the mind, of the space around you, and simply allowing the attention to follow the breath that flows in and that flows out. Allow the breath and the music to ground you here, ground you now. First, let us breathe into the all is wellness of our life, the things that are going well, the things which we are grateful for, things that we can easily point to that are the sources of or joy or inspiration. Perhaps bring a few of those to mind and just breathe gratitude for them. Now we take this a little deeper, and let's perhaps bring to mind some areas in our life that are just mild discomforts. Things maybe we wish were going better, but they're not horrible right now. Some minor stresses in our life. Let's maybe bring one or two of those to mind and simply notice them, acknowledge them. Breathe into those as well. Now perhaps bring to mind an area of your life that is still a source of pain or sadness. Whether it be new or something you've carried for decades. Just bring it to mind. Feel the feelings that still come with that. Breathe into it. Breathe into the thing that brings you tears. Breathe into the thing that makes you stop. That paralyzes you. Breathe into that which you feel there is no hope, that might never change. The past hurt that caused you to forever see life differently. Breathe into it. And we breathe deeper below that And it is below that that lies the wholeness. It is below that that lies the need that we think we are missing. It is below that that lies the fullness of who we are. Because it is indeed the pain that takes us there. It is indeed the pain that opens us up in order to touch it. The pain of loss truly allows us to connect with the depth of love that we are. The pain of abandonment allows us to connect with the fullness and wholeness that we really are. Breathe into it. We are all that God is. And just as we may get through the realization of that truth, through joy and song and adulation, we also get to that truth through deep pain and suffering. The via positiva, the via negativa, they're all the paths to the deep truth of who we are. We are all that God is. I am all that God is. Let us sit in that truth, that deep, abiding truth. For a minute silently to ourselves. I am all that God is. I am all that God is. For a few moments in the silence. I am all that God is. God is love, I am love. God is life, I am life. God is abundance. I am abundance. We hold that truth for all the names in our prayer box, for all these prayer requests that come from a place of love, inviting love into the lives of others. We hold the intention that they recognize and remember that all God is, they are. And all of life's circumstances are an invitation to remember that, to connect with that, to live that truth. And should we hold that intention for ourselves or any other people in our lives, invite you to say their names out loud now. In so doing, we are holding that intention for them, that they remember all God is, they are, that we remember that for ourselves and that we show up in their lives remembering that truth, that all God is, we are. Should you like some help remembering that, I invite you to visit our prayer chaplains. If they wouldn't mind standing for a moment in the four corners of our room here. Our prayer chaplains are here to sit with you after service, to hold that intention with you, to remind you of the truth of who you are as all that God is. So whether it's a prayer of concern, a prayer of jubilation, whatever it is, they're here for you. And thank you.
There is a love, a holy love. There is a love. There is a love, a holy love. There is a love that is shining as you, shining out to make you holy, shining as you, shining out to make you whole.
Last Sunday, the world was stunned by the news of the death of basketball superstar Kobe Bryant. Even if you were not a basketball fan, you knew the name. You recognized perhaps who he was. Even if you didn't know who he was, it was still sort of a shock for many of us, if for no other reason than when we found out further details that it wasn't just him, it was him, his 13-year-old daughter, 7 others who died in this very sudden, horrific helicopter crash. There were parents, there were children, they were on their way to a basketball game. There are 2 sports that I'm interested in, generally in life. I'm sorry, football is not one of them. I know it's Patriots country. And apparently I realized that unless the Patriots are playing, this part of the world kind of really don't care about the Super Bowl. But hey, that was kind of a revelation to me. Anywho's, the 2 sports I'm interested in. Love tennis, played it as a kid a lot. And I love basketball. Did not play basketball, but I followed it closely. And this sudden passing was, kind of hit me hard. For a bunch of reasons I'll go into. But I wanted to first start with a little context, because I know, having spoken with a lot of you in the last 5 years I'm here, that not a whole lot of you are hardcore NBA fans. I still love you anyways. But just to give you an extent as to why a week later this is still in the headlines, why a week later this is still what not just sports networks, but a lot of other networks are still talking about and having remembrances about. Kobe Bryant was, to say the least, one of the greatest basketball players to ever exist. He was what I like to call the second coming after Michael Jordan. You all recognize the name Michael Jordan, right? Okay. There's still hope. There's still hope. I like to call him the heir to his airness, Michael Jordan. He was the second coming. He was probably the most anticipated player to come right out of high school into the professional leagues at a time when that wasn't a thing. Today, a lot of people want to do that. But back then, this was an unusual thing. He joined the league at 17 years old. In the course of his basketball career, he won 5 NBA championships, as you see there, 18 All-Star games. He had 2 jerseys retired by the same team. Now, I don't know if you know what that means, but in order to get your jersey retired by a team, you had to have been beyond good and have a legacy within that team. The Celtics have been a basketball team that has excelled throughout the organization's history, and a lot of numbers retired up there as well. The Lakers and the Celtics have decades-long rivalries, and Kobe brought the Showtime back to Lakers. Scoring titles, he was 4th on the all-time individual scoring points list. He was 3rd up until the weekend before his death. In fact, 2 days before his death, he was passed by LeBron James. You do recognize that name at least. Okay, all right. See, y'all, not so bad at all. He was passed, and the last tweet he would ever send was congratulating LeBron for passing him and continuing to move the game forward. He was the only one who came pretty close to breaking a record set by Wilt Chamberlain in '62. In '62, Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in a game. And in 2006, Kobe scored 81 in a game against Toronto Raptors. To put that in context, good players maybe end the night with 12 to 15 points. Really great players today, the top-of-the-line elite players will end the game with 30 or 40-some points. He scored 81 in a single game. And just to not let us forget how great he was, his final game as a professional player, 38 years old, which is in basketball years, I have dog years, in basketball years, not many people make it to 38. He scored 60 points in his final game, just so we would remember how great he was. And many people began to love him more after basketball because his relentless dedication and work ethic often put rifts between him and other players. And there were those who were like, okay, what's he going to do for his second act? And the beautiful thing about what he was doing was he was beginning to find his footing post-basketball career, post-retirement. For example, just for kicks, he won an Academy Award. He wrote an animated short called Dear Basketball, and it won Best Animated Short in 2016, I believe. Yeah, 2016. He spoke multiple languages. He was a dedicated parent. In fact, after he retired, he started to fall out of love with basketball. Sometimes when you do something for so long, it kind of okay, I'm kind of done with this. But it was his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, who was in the helicopter with him, that decided to take up the mantle of basketball after him. In fact, he remarked on a nightly show that people would come up to him and say, you need to have a son to carry on your legacy of basketball. He's got 4 daughters. You need to have a son to carry on this legacy. And his 13-year-old Gianna would say, what are you talking about? I got this. And she was already a brilliant player at 13. And because of her interest, it got him to fall in love with the game again. And he had his basketball academy. He taught basketball. He was a coach of their games. And then suddenly, poof, he was gone. And I think why it hit many of us hard who were not just into sports, but considering the tragedy of this was he was 41 years old. And a lot of times how we respond to things is very much influenced by how we believe and when we believe it should happen. 41, just beginning to engage life after a storied career in different ways. His daughter was 13. When that news came across, when I heard that, you know within hours I was calling my daughter. And she'd heard of the news. She's carrying on my legacy as a basketball fan. And she was also in that place of shock and surprise. And then she was like, are you okay? And I'm like gushing all over her. And she's like, are you okay? I said, forgive me if a man and his daughter just died and I want to connect with mine. Who, by the way, she's about to get on an airplane. So that was a whole other level of anxiety, speaking with her. So one of the things I want to first go into is this: why is it that sometimes we feel the loss and impact of celebrities that we never even knew? I've never met the man. Saw him play live twice, seen him countless times on TV, but I don't know him. For many of you, there have been other maybe celebrities or well-known people who, when they passed away, you felt shock, you felt loss, you felt that. Celebrity deaths are they're an interesting phenomenon and how we respond to them. So I did some thinking about this and some researching about this. Why is it that it affects us the way it does? One of them is because celebrities, by default, whether it's curated or not, they share a lot of who they are with us. They let us glimpse into their lives because either we demand it or that's just the nature of who they are and the situation. So we feel sometimes like we know them and we're getting to know them. So there is a weird sort of quasi-personal attachment connection that we have to celebrities. But the other thing about it is, no matter what field they are, celebrities or people who are well-known, they often serve as inspirations for us. So whether they be athletes or artists, authors, clergy, peacemakers, philanthropists, activists, more often than not, they inspire us with a vision of the possibility of what could be. And their actions in their lives often invite us to take a look at our own and often pull us up into a higher state of being for who we are. They teach us without really teaching us. They model. And that is perhaps the most effective way to teach, is to model. The other reason sometimes we take these deaths to heart as much as we do is because they trigger our own grief around personal losses, especially if we've encountered losses that we are still trying to make sense of, we're still grieving from, we're still trying to understand. Kobe died at 41. As many of you know, 5 years ago, my wife died, and she was 42 at the time. And so his death triggered that as well. And my own still working on anger around the senselessness of people who die young without having really, the judgment I make is they have not given us all that they're capable of. And that's a judgment I have based on my attachment. It reminded me of re-triggered a very recent loss I had. 2 weeks before his passing, I ended my relationship of 3 years with my girlfriend. So that was fresh in the emotions too. And the funny thing is, sometimes we don't feel these at the time we want to feel them. So for example, this happened, I was all in shock of this. and the 2 weeks before. But the past month has been, for some of you know, we've been, until recently, without an operations director. So there's been a lot of, extra stuff on my plate. And then there was the anxieties around interviewing and hiring the right person. Thank God we did. Where's Mary Jane? Hey, Mary Jane. Awesome. There was the okay, my vacation time's coming up. Plane tickets already bought. Brad and two folks are coming to won the auction to come with me to Barbados. So like all that's already planned, and it's like the time is passing, and we haven't hired somebody yet. It's going to be a tight crunch, and then we hired somebody, and it's like, okay, how do I bring her up to speed in like 2 or 3 weeks before I go? So all of this was going on with all of this, and I kid you not, for the first time this morning when I pulled into church, and I realized, we've got someone who's kind of got a good handle on things. Things are flowing well. I feel at peace about leaving. And as soon as I felt that peace, the emotions washed in. There was a good 10-minute cry in my office this morning. I'm just feeling that. Feeling the loss. Feeling the deep emotion. And as I said in my meditation, part of why we feel these deep emotions is because beneath them is deep love. Deep love. Now, the interesting thing about Kobe's death, it also brings up something I like to call the complicated side of grief. Because Kobe's life was not perfect. Those of you who know about his life, know about the sexual abuse allegation that came up in 2003, I believe it was. And if you spend any time on the Twitter sphere this week, you'd see the outrage that some people held about why are we holding up this guy on a pedestal when he did this horrible thing? And this is not unique to him. When we look at so many of our heroes and the people who inspire us, we forget that they're human and flawed. We went through this with Michael Jackson. We went through this with Bill Cosby. If you're paying attention, we're beginning to go through this with Martin Luther King. What's that? Gandhi. Yeah, mentioned Gandhi last week. Yeah. So we have to remember, and this is what it brings up, and sometimes this is confusing. How, these people who inspired us and we call heroes, and yet this is a side of them as well. What do? And we've arrived at 2020, we're like deep in what we call cancel culture. Someone does one thing, boom, we're done. We're done with them. And make no mistake, I'm not giving him a pass for what he did then. We need to be held accountable for our behaviors. But in this cancel culture, we've lost what I like to call the perspective of nuance. There's a difference between someone who committed an horrendous act, who showed contrition, who did the work to repair his marriage and become a responsible model adult, versus someone who's like a serial predator abuser like Harvey Weinstein. There's a spectrum of nuance here we've got to not lose sight of when we think of these things. It's not giving a pass, not saying it's okay, and not saying we don't hold these people accountable. But we've got to not let the anger and the outrage separate us from the opportunity of forgiveness and redemption. None of us want to be defined by our worst moment. Many of us can look back in our past and say, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I hadn't caused pain to that individual. if we were to be judged and held by only our worst moments, I don't know about you, but I'd be gone. So it's complicated to separate the art from the artist, as they say. Should we do that? Only you can know for yourselves, depending who the person is. But just remember that for us, what is the standard we want to be held by? Our tendency is to look back on life and try to pull out the lessons that we can learn. But I want to invite us today to realize that the other side of that coin is to look forward. Look forward. Knowing that that moment is going to come for each and every one of us. And ask ourselves, what lessons does our death have to teach us? What lessons does our death have to teach us? Spoiler alert, you're going to die. What lessons does our death have to teach us? Are we even open to asking the question and listening to what it says to us? It's not the first time I've been spending time with that question. But here's what came up for me this week. Some old thoughts and some new ones. First of all, accept that death is going to be random and it has no meaning. Let us not ask why this happened or why it will happen. That's a meaningless question. It happens because birth and death are the two sides of the coin we call life. It's inevitable. So it doesn't make sense to me to ask why. So accept it. Accept the inevitability of it. Accept the randomness of it. Accept the seeming unfairness of it. Accept it. Because only when we begin to accept it can we begin to make peace with it. When we make peace with it, we allow it to define us just as much as we allow life to define us. And when we do that, we redefine what we think of successes in life. I was at lunch with Rhonda last week when the news alert came across my watch about him passing. And she asked a brilliant question. She said, if you knew, I'm paraphrasing, if you knew you were going to die tomorrow, next week, what would you be doing differently? And I said, it's kind of a difficult question because I've been on this spiritual path for a while. So by intention, I continually am creating the life experience I want. And if something in my life experience is not what I want it to be, I go about the business of changing it. First, by changing myself, and then letting life take care of itself. I said, but if there's one thing that I would maybe say I wish I'd done more of, it's see the rest of this world and travel. So apparently, I'm going to be going to Australia later this year. It's been on my bucket list for a while. I got friends who live there who've been inviting me down, and I've kept putting it off. It's the other life-death lesson that I've really been with this week. I've really been with for the past 5 years. Why not now? Why not now? Why not travel now? Why not learn to paint now? Why not write the book now? Why not learn that instrument now? Why not now? Why not now? And we can come up with a million reasons why not now. And all those reasons are grounded in fear. If we truly love ourselves, when that question comes up, why not now? The only answer will be, I don't know. So, okay, let's do it. If there's anything else I learned from Kobe's life in passing is live life as fully and as authentically as you can. I was kind of talking about this the last couple of weeks when I was talking about finding our purpose and living our purpose as a divine imperative. But if we are living fully, authentically, the wholeness of who we are, there's no regrets when that time comes. Not only is there no regrets, but the others that we leave behind can look on, yes, with a mix of sadness, but with a look of, we're so proud because you lived your life fully, authentically. You modeled and inspired others. In fact, Kobe Bryant said the most important thing is to try and inspire people so they can be great in whatever they try to do. That's each and every one of us. We don't have to be a superstar to model and inspire others. We simply need to live. Live fully. Live authentically. Live as though, remember what he said, that quote from Ram Dass, live as though we are God in drag. Live the fullness of our divinity. So my invitation to you this week is simply this. Whether you knew who Kobe Bryant was or not, doesn't really matter. Notice if you spend any time in that question of what does my death have to teach me? And if not something you ever do on a regular basis, spend some time with it this week. Depending on where you are in your phase of life right now, maybe you're tending to do that more so than others. But it's a question for each and every one of us because none of us know how or when. So don't live life from fear of it. Live life loving it. Live life being inspired by it. So that you can be the fullness of who you are today, right now. And that's the greatest gift that you can give yourself and you can give the world. If I take a deep breath and close your eyes. And silently affirm to yourself, I choose to live fully now. Whether I'm 21, 41, 61, 81, I choose to live fully now. To do otherwise would be to deny the divinity that I am. This is what we call sin in unity, denying the divinity that we are. So let us not live in that sin. Let us live in salvation. And salvation, our salvation, is embracing the divinity of who we are and living it fully. Now. And so it is.
Thank you, Ogun, for that message. Hi, I'm Michelle Gallant, facilitating today. I would like to take a moment to welcome anyone who is visiting with us for the first time. We have a flower and a welcome packet for you. So if you could please raise your hand if you're here for the first time. We have one here. Okay. Welcome. There's a questionnaire on the welcome card in the packet, and you can take that to the Spiritual Resource Center in the bookstore, and someone can welcome you there and answer any questions that you might have. And the flower that you're receiving gives you 10% off in the bookstore, so you're welcome to shop as you would like. Please know that your presence here enriches us, and we welcome all paths to God, and thank you for coming. Let's take a moment to greet our live streamers. Just a reminder, you can watch our services live on YouTube or recorded on YouTube, and you can listen to the talks on all different types of podcast formats. Just search Unity on the River Sunday Sermons. Unity on the River is a center of celebration, transformation, inspiration, spirit-centeredness, oneness, and joy. Please hold these truths in your heart as we say our vision and mission statement. Our vision statement. Awakened to and transformed by love, we are an expanding, compassionate, inclusive beacon of light. And we achieve our vision through our mission of, together, transforming lives and inspiring people to make a positive difference in our world. And now is the time in our service where we prepare our tithes and offerings. In your bulletin is an insert, and we welcome you to take home with all the different ways that you can give, including the new 2020 text to give. You text give to 833-702-4337. After a one-time account setup, you just need to send a text and the amount you'd like to donate to that number, and it will be donated to us. So we give thanks for all the ways that you choose to invest in your spiritual community. Let's hold those gifts in our hands and bless them with our energy of abundance together as we say, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
I got everything I need to be happy. I got love, I got friends, I got my community. I got the birds in the morning and the sun in the sky. I got my heart full of songs I'm singing. Oh my, I got everything that I need to be happy. I got everything that I need to be happy. I got some love, I got laughter, and I got what's left of my sanity. I got John on piano and fire in my ear. I got sweet Ogun sitting right there, and all of you all around waiting. And I'm going to India, and you're going to be here when I get back, right? I got everything that I need. I got everything that I need. I got everything that I need to be happy. Do 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 do.
For our music team, they're fantastic. So now just a few quick reminders and updates. While Reverend Ogun is away in February on vacation over the next 3 Sundays, we have some very special services planned. Next week, February 9th, our very own Amy Joslin, licensed Unity teacher extraordinaire, is going to be speaking. Her talk is Muck Happens, and it's okay. So that's like what we could say on the slides. And the following week, James Twyman will be here. He's an internationally known promoter of world peace, and he will perform an original off-Broadway show about the life of St. Francis Assisi. You really don't want to miss that. Make sure you come. And on Sunday, February 23rd, singer-songwriter Charlie Thweet will be here with his performance and talk about Tell Me Stories. So he's been here before. We love him, so try to come to that too. We also wanted you to be aware of a few upcoming workshops and classes. Gina Janest will be leading Compassionate Communication. It's a great opportunity to practice choosing a response to conflict rather than a reactive reaction. Level 1 class will be held on Saturday, February 22nd from 9 to 1. Unity prayer class with Reverend Ogun starting on March 4th through April 1st with the book How to Pray Without Talking to God. So you can, and then we also have prayer chaplain training will be coming up at the last weekend of March. Additional details regarding those services and classes are on our website and on our bulletin. And we are moving forward with paperless registrations, and trying to get people to register in advance for classes. So if you need any help with that, you can ask in the bookstore. Ask the Minister is coming up on March 1st. You'll find a slip in today's bulletin to write any question you would like Reverend Ogun to answer when he returns. Please drop off those questions in the Resource Center anytime before February 25th. And a big thank you to all the folks and Hearts and Hands that serve this community. Angels who stepped up extra this week, Jack, Teresa, Linda. And our teams, the PowerPoint team, the folding team, and the live streaming team. And board members, if you could stand, whoever's here. And they are always, they're available to answer any questions you might have after the service. And now we move back to music, freedom.
Where there is freedom, there is love. Always, always. Hands together. Step out of the shadow, step out of the grave, break into the wild, and don't be afraid. Run into wide open spaces, places waiting for you. Dance as the weight has been lifted, places waiting. And the spirit of love is there is freedom, there is freedom. Where the spirit of love is, there is freedom, there is freedom. Come out of the dark, just as you are.
Nope, we're already up there. Am I on? Am I on? We're gonna welcome our kids walking as the light.
Namaste.
seated.
Hello. So we had fun today. Kind of a little group, but it was good. Talked about our physical response to stress and exercise, and we learned how to find our pulses, and we learned how to even do a little blood pressure. So that was kind of fun. And talked about different ways that we can kind of calm ourselves through breath, and the ways that affects our oxygen level and our blood pressure and our heart rate. So that was kind of fun. It's a little bit of science today, but it was pretty awesome. Yeah.
And just a reminder, there's a hike coming up. You don't forget about the hike. When's the hike again?
The 2nd of May.
It's
Something
coming
like
right up.
Check your email newsletter. There's a hike coming up. There you go. And they would love some company. Before we sing our peace song, a couple of things I need to update you on. We mail out donation letters to you this week. Some of you have received them. Some of you also pointed out to us that some of your reoccurring tithes and gifts that you set up have been included in the letter, or the totals weren't correct. Please check as... We'll get yours to you. Don't worry. We'll get yours to you. Check and see, and if you already know, please connect with Mary Jane, because we need to figure out, if you set that up through which portal, if it's a credit card or direct bank transfer that you set up reoccurring. We need some more details around that. So if you already know, or when you find out, please connect with Mary Jane. Speaking of connecting with Mary Jane, she would love some office volunteer help during the week, especially with me being on the next 3 weeks. So if you find yourself with some free time and you would love to come in and help out in any way, we have plenty of ways for you to help with any skill levels. Please connect with Mary Jane as well and let her know when you can come in and help. And just a word of preparation for Jim Twyman's service. When he comes to do his play, service will not look the way it usually looks. The band won't be here, the choir won't be here, there won't be any singing. We're gonna start the service with just giving you a few updates, and then we're gonna let him do his thing. Those of you who are familiar with James Twyman knows he's like the consummate, not just performer, but singer, peacemaker, troubadour is what he calls himself. So I'm just giving you some prep. So when you walk in that Sunday and you're like, what's going on? Remember this moment that I've told you, okay? It's gonna be unlike anything we've experienced before. For live streamers, don't worry. He's cool with it being live stream. And after he performs here, he's heading to New York to do it in an off-Broadway theater. So we're like his pre-Broadway performance, okay? So tell your friends, tell everyone that you know, and let them come. This is gonna be something special. I wish these things would happen when I am here, because now I'm gonna miss it. But I'll probably live stream, don't worry. Let us stand, take the hand of your neighbor, affirm the peace, the truth for yourself, for the world, for these children. There's peace on earth, it begins with us. Let there be peace on earth.
protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And we are richly blessed.
Have a great week.